We're going to wrap this series up today on that of the way of the transgressor and how that life is a life that is hard and difficult and never works like you think it's going to work. We saw that the young man, when he made the decision to live and go down the path of the transgressor, the first thing it did, it caused him to forsake his family. I wish you could see my heart and how this breaks my heart because I see it happening over and over and over still today. Because the very first thing that happens is they want to put off the restrictions of their family. And they forsake their family. And then you see, we looked at yesterday that he just had foolish fun. The Bible said riotous living, which means no moral restraints, no God, no judgment, no anything. I can do what I want and get away with it. And he was wrong. The third thing I want us to see is that he found himself famished. In verse number 14, it says, "And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want." You see, number one, he started hurting. He spent everything. Can I tell you that's what the world will do to you every time? The devil doesn't care about you. He just doesn't want God to get the glory. And he and the world and your flesh will suck the life right out of you until you're spent. He was hurting, and then you see he halted. There was a famine in that land. There was a famine there. And he realized all of a sudden he stopped, and he's no more fun living, no more parties, no more drinking. And he found himself alone, hurting, halted, and hungry. He found himself to be in want. For the first time, he looked around and he thought, I have no friends, I have no food, I have no drink. And he's sitting there, famished. That's exactly what the transgressing way will lead you and leave you, is that of being famished, completely spent, all alone, nowhere to go, hungry, wanting. You see, he was found famished, and then he felt filthy. He felt filthy. Look there in verse number 15 of Luke 15. It says, "And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed the swine." He now became associated with someone who did not care for him. Again, I wish you could know, and just for privacy's sake I can't, but illustration after illustration of those who went down this path, and all of a sudden they're living in an apartment with someone who could care less about them but is just using them for a few bucks every month. Or they find themselves in a relationship that is just built upon wickedness and want nothing to do with each other, and there's no love, no compassion. This guy, all of a sudden, he went and joined himself to a citizen of a faraway country. Obviously, this person didn't care for him. Look at the job he gave him. But that's what always happens. He began to feel filthy. He's associated with someone who didn't care for him. And then he assembled with the swine. They didn't even share with him. In verse number 16, he would fain have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. He had to fight for his food with the pigs. How sad is that? The person that goes down this path, they just think, oh, it's going to be great, it's going to be wonderful, and they have this time of riotous living, but it cost them their family, and then they find themselves hurting and hungry and halted, and then you find them, sorry about the bell, then you find him associating himself with someone who did not care for him, assembled with the swine that wouldn't even help him, and that's the crowd that you'll find yourself with, and then assaulted by the citizen who would not spare. It says, and no man gave unto him. Obviously, people would walk by and say, could you help me? No. What a terrible life. You drive down to, for us, it's down to Cincinnati. You'll see this. You'll see them standing under the overpass. You'll see them standing at the intersection. Alone. Hurt. Empty. Looking for something. He felt filthy, and then I got to close on because God always gives hope. Praise the Lord, there was a faithful father. When the boy decided he would get right, he went back home, and he had a speech planned, and he was going to do what he needed to do in order just to be a servant at home, but he had a faithful father. Listen to these three thoughts and I'll close. His father was waiting. His father was willing. And his father was watching. Verse 17, and when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hungry? I will arise and go to my father, and say unto him, Father, I have sinned against thee, against heaven and before thee. The Bible goes on to say, and he arose and came to his father, but when he was a great way off, his father saw him, had compassion, and ran, and fell on his neck, and kissed him, and then restored him, and my son is home. Wherever you're at today, especially a young person, if you drifted away from God, I don't care if you're 70 and you've drifted away from God. You have a faithful Father in heaven who is waiting, just waiting for you to come home. Some of you have a faithful dad who's sitting at his house praying for you right now, just waiting for you to come home. Some of you have a faithful mom who's on her knees praying that this year, this new year, her son will come home. Her daughter will come home. My friend, you have a God in heaven that's waiting and willing to forgive and watching for you. Please run to the Father. Run to your parents today. Start this year right. Get right with God today. I love you all.